This will be the beginning of the construction of bottle 5. I have it sitting here and the first step on how to build this. So this is very nice organic type of flower, petal, leaf type of construction with that center drop shape in the middle. So I think this is a nice design. It's the interplay between the positive and negative spaces between these two shapes, and they both work together really well. So we have this beautiful drop shape in the middle, and then we have this kind of leaf petal shape on the outside. And I did this 3 ways instead of 4. I have 3 sections here. So each part, it breaks it down into 3 sections, kind of a triangulation. I mean, it could be done in 4, absolutely no problem. It just makes each one a little bit smaller. I liked the way that these thirds wrapped around that bottle and created that nice tension in those curves. So it's just an aesthetic, which I thought was kind of nice. So to start this, we need to create these 2 surfaces over here on the side. So this first one is going to be a revolve. And I'm going to create the curve and then revolve it just 120 degrees because that's all we need. Because I'm going to build just 1/3 of the bottle, spend all the time detailing that. And then all we have to do is revolve at 120 degrees around, and then we can complete our shape. So we'll build the revolve first. And then from that revolve, we're going to cut out this shape in the center. So let's start off with, I'll show you how I did that. So again, it's a little bit of back and forth and making some guesses and judgment calls and sort of working it out. So I started off with some circles. I wanted a nice, round, complete circle at the bottom. So I created these 2 circles for the drop shape and then also for the bottom of the revolve. And I'm just using that as a guide. I will ultimately use some of the geometry from that smaller circle. And I'm going to connect that with this line tool that I used, and then I'm going to do my curves create like we've done in many other types of structures. So again, the 2 circles are just guides, and I'm guessing on size here. This is going to ultimately end up being like a perfume bottle proportion, and I'm going to talk about rendering glass with this. It could be used for anything. It doesn't have to be a perfume bottle. That's just what this is going to end up being. So I have these kind of short, squat proportions. This same technique could be done for very tall and very lean. It could have a unique top, and it could be for a liquor bottle. It could be for lots of different things. So again, keep in mind, this is just some techniques on how to build shapes. This particular one will turn out to be a perfume bottle. So as you can see, I have my, let me just move this out of the way. So again, this is how I like to work with the line tool. I just draw these straight lines and I kind of guess about the geometry. I'm coming off of the circle down here. I took half of that circle. I trimmed it so I have that half circle. So I want that to be tangent. I want to line up with that circle because I'm going to use that as part of my geometry. So when I did my line tool, I actually clicked on here and went straight up. Because if I start with straight up and then go into the rest of my dynamics, that encourages, when I do my C curve, it encourages that to line up perfectly with that circle. If I had done that differently, if I went like this and then I went out here, or if I went in a little bit first, it would not become tangent with that circle at the bottom. So my starting point is straight up, and then I make my guesses about how things are going to work. And they are guesses. I really don't know. I've done it a lot, so I guess pretty well, but quite often it's all over the place. So I started off with coming up straight. I went to this point, and I went to this point, and then I checked it out. And the curve came down a little bit high. I kind of want to come off of this circle, so it didn't quite line up. So I ended up adding a point in here with my add point, insert point tool from these edit tools over here. Oops. Here, these edit tools. We have insert point. So I did the line and then I checked it. So by inserting that point, what it's doing, it's encouraging this to be straighter and not be so organic and flopping all over the place. This is the line that I ended up creating. And it comes down straight into that circle. So it's quite a beautiful curve. So that takes a little time. So that's the curve that I will create. So if I were to go to my curves create tool, and I've been doing 2. I did this at 3, which encourages a little bit more curve. You have to, it's hard for me to tell exactly what's going to happen, but the higher the number, the more curving that's going on. But since I added this point, it did a really not. So if I click on this with that curve creates tool, there it is. That gave me this curve. That took some time. So you have to experiment with that. I just want to keep another thing in mind here. Both of these curves, I have them starting at the same point up top here. Ghost. These two are starting at the same point. This other line out here is to create the line for the revolve that we're going to do. So it's a similar type of structure, but I'm coming from my bottom. I'm guessing to myself that I want a bottom about this big. It will be a round bottom because I'm going to revolve this. And I just guessed on where these points are going to go. It takes some time to figure that out. But I'm close to following this guideline right here. This larger circle, I want the bottom of this bottle to closely follow that round circle and then come up. The one in the center, I actually used the circle. Here, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this, just my line tool, to create this curve. So again, I'm moving these points around. I put this point in the center of this. So this is very straight with a point in the middle. This is going to hold pretty tight, even though I'm going to do this with the C curve in the 3 selections. So if I select that, what I want to show you is, you see how the bottom of this curve is following my circle and then feathering out a little bit. Because if I followed the circle all the way around, my base would be much too tiny. So I want to bring that out just a little bit. But in here, it's very important that I follow this curve, because when I trim with this other line, those things need to look nice next to one another. And I'll show you what happens when we trim that. So that's the line development. And again, these 2 points are at the same level at this point. You can draw a construction line to do that, or you can start this line there and then move it over. But they need to be at the same place. And again, I'll show you why that works that way. So that's how those lines were created. So I'll show you what I'm going to do with those lines. So this is all in the lines tool tutorial that I had talked about earlier. So for this outside one, let's ghost. Let's ghost that. Hold on, ghost, go away. And we are going to unghost. This is the line that was created. Gotta get these tools. Okay, unghost. This is going to be the outside of the bottle shape. Let's go back to these. It's going to be this shape right here. So I'm going to revolve that. But I'm only going to revolve it 120 degrees because I only need 1/3 of our full shape. Under Derive Tool, normally Revolve is the first one available. So I have it set to 120 degrees. Clockwise is kind of incidental. I'm going to move it around anyhow. It's continuous. So if I grab this shape, and I don't need another line because it automatically will go to our center line. So I'm going to revolve that. And there it is. So that only revolved 120 degrees. So I'm going to bring that towards the front because I want to work on that. And I want it on center in the front. So we need to rotate that around. It's going to go back into line. I like working in wireframe. So rotate. So I know I have some geometry that I'm snapping to. So I'm just going to make sure, always make sure. Look up at your X, Y, and Z coordinates up at the top left there at 0, 0, 0. So I know I am right there. So now I'm going to click. And since I'm going clockwise, it'll be negative, I believe. I'm always confused with this. So it'll be negative, I believe, 60. Enter. No. Guessed wrong again. So I only need to move that 30 degrees. So I'm going to make sure I snap zeros, negative 30 degrees. So now we can see I'm going to look straight into the front of just that one portion of the circle. So there it is. So I have this beautifully symmetrical part right here that I'm going to be working with. So what I want to do now is I want to trim, like I have here. I'm going to trim out this nice kind of water drop shape in the center of that form. So that's where these parts come in. I am going to ghost that because we talked about how I built that. So I'm going to unghost what I have. Come on. So what I did was I took this half circle at the bottom that I created from the full circle by trim splitting that, and I connected it, joined it to two of these. I just took this line that I had over here, and I just mirrored it over to the other side, and I connected that. So now that is all one line, and it's flat on that surface because I created it as a line. So if we look from the front, I'm now going to trim this partial revolve with that line, which we've done before many times. With line, no stitching. Stitching go away. I don't want this part from the center. I want the revolve from out here. So I'm going to select it from here, and I'm going to trim here. We can talk about these handles. These are ways parametric objects can be shaped and transformed after you trim them. I like to keep track of my shapes without using those, but those can come in handy. So here is this shape. So now I have trimmed that, and it looks really good. So if I start to look at these lines from these other axes here, it's a nice transition. This edge, this cutting edge looks really good. That actually took some time. I went back and forth with creating my profile for my revolve and my trim split line. I went back and forth for a while because this looked kind of bumpy. It wasn't really clean. It kind of bumped out a little bit because of how I made the curve. And that would make the design not look very nice. So this looks like a nice, beautiful transition from all angles. That was the goal there. And that took some time because we want that really nice and clean. I want that to look very smooth. and organic. Yeah, so that takes time. I understand. So you have to go back and forth. Okay, so that's creating this whole trim split surface. And we're going to take that and evolve that into the rest of this design to create this bottle. So that'll be the end of this tutorial, and we'll proceed in the next one.